Mercedes is not in trouble because Russell and Antonelli are fighting. Mercedes is in trouble because both drivers now have a reason to believe the team should choose them. George Russell left Canada saying he has nothing to lose. Kimi Antonelli left Canada with a 43-point lead. And before Monaco, the worst possible place for two angry teammates, Mercedes has been hit by the one problem speed cannot fix: broken trust. The radio exploded. A private meeting was exposed. Russell's car died while he was leading. Antonelli walked away stronger. And Toto Wolff warned that teammates may not always have total freedom to fight. That is not normal tension. That is a championship team standing one corner away from disaster. Because in Canada, one touch created headlines. But in Monaco, one touch can end both races, hand Ferrari and McLaren the opening they are waiting for, and force Mercedes to reveal who it really protects. Russell is fighting to recover the role he thought was his. Antonelli is fighting to defend the championship lead he has already taken. And if they meet wheel-to-wheel in Monte Carlo, Mercedes may discover its biggest rival is not outside the garage. It is inside it. Subscribe to the channel. At first, Mercedes could still pretend the problem was manageable. A hard fight in Canada. A few angry radio messages. A tense press conference. A young driver under pressure. An experienced driver defending his place. That is the version Mercedes would want the world to believe, because that version sounds normal. It sounds like competitive hunger. It sounds like two elite drivers pushing each other inside a dominant team. But the truth is much more dangerous. Canada did not create the crisis. Canada revealed it. And now, before Monaco, Mercedes has to face the one thing every championship team fears. The drivers are no longer fighting from the same reality. Russell is fighting from frustration. Antonelli is fighting from control. And Toto Wolff is stuck between them, trying to protect a season that could be damaged by one corner. To understand why this has become so explosive, you have to go back to the beginning, when everything still looked perfect. Australia was the dream opening. Russell won. Antonelli finished second. Mercedes had a clean 1-2 finish. No public tension. No obvious drama. No sign that the garage was already carrying a problem that would grow faster than anyone expected. For the cameras, it looked like the ideal Mercedes story. Russell in front. Antonelli behind. The experienced driver leading the new era, the young star learning inside the safest possible structure. That was exactly what Mercedes needed. And for Russell, it meant even more. This season was supposed to be his. He had waited for this car. He had waited for Mercedes to return to the front. He had carried pressure through the difficult years, answered doubts, survived comparisons, and stayed ready for the moment when the team finally had a machine capable of fighting for the championship. The W17 looked like that machine. Fast enough to dominate. Stable enough to control races. Strong enough to make the rest of the grid nervous. So when Russell won in Australia, it seemed like the natural order had arrived. The leader had taken the lead. The rookie had followed. The plan was working. But Formula One rarely warns you with noise first. It warns you with data. Behind the perfect result, Mercedes saw something uncomfortable. Antonelli was already faster than Russell in one of the most technical parts of Albert Park. Not by a huge margin. Not enough to take away Russell's victory. But enough to matter. Because in Formula One, a few tenths can change the atmosphere of an entire team. The stopwatch does not care about age. It does not care about status. It does not care who was expected to lead. It only asks one question. Who is getting more out of the car? That was the first quiet warning. Antonelli was not behaving like a rookie who needed time. He was already close enough to make Russell feel him. And that changes everything. Because when a young driver is close in the first race, the experienced driver can tell himself it is normal. New energy. Fresh confidence. Nothing more. But when the data shows speed in the technical zones, the team starts listening differently. Engineers look more closely. Strategy meetings feel sharper. Debriefs become more loaded. Every lap comparison carries a hidden question. Is the rookie already faster than expected? Mercedes could hide that question after Australia because Russell had won. The result protected the story. But China removed that protection. Russell took pole position, and for a moment, it looked like he had answered the doubt immediately. Pole is authority. Pole tells the garage that when pressure is highest and one lap must be perfect, the established driver can still produce the decisive moment. For Russell, it was a statement. He was still the reference. He was still the driver Mercedes should trust. But the race changed everything. Antonelli used strategy perfectly. He undercut Russell, moved ahead, and once he had the lead, he did not look like a driver who had stumbled into a lucky moment. He looked ready. He stayed ahead. He won. And that was the moment the Mercedes hierarchy stopped being theoretical. Because Russell had not been beaten by a rival team. He had been beaten by the other car in the same garage, same machinery, same team, same data, same opportunity. That is the comparison drivers cannot escape. When another team beats you, the explanation can live outside the cockpit. But when your teammate beats you, the question becomes personal. What did he do that I could not? That question is brutal. And after China, Antonelli was leading the championship. That was not just a points table change. That was an identity shift. The driver who was supposed to be the future had become the present before Russell had even settled into the role he believed was finally his. And there was another detail that made China more painful. Russell had a mechanical problem during qualifying at exactly the wrong time, while trying to complete another fast lap. Mercedes investigated the issue, but the immediate cause was not clearly found. That does not prove anything dark. It does not mean anyone inside Mercedes was working against him. But in a title fight, timing has emotion. A problem at the wrong moment feels bigger than the problem itself. And when your teammate is winning while you are explaining a failure, frustration starts to grow roots. Then came Japan. Suzuka should have been Russell's reset. He had pace. He looked strong. He seemed ready to fight for victory and pull the story back toward himself. But the safety car arrived at the worst possible moment for him, and the best possible moment for Antonelli. Antonelli gained. Russell lost the advantage he had been building. And again, the key moment of the race leaned toward the other side of the garage. On paper, it was racing. Emotionally, it was another wound. Because drivers do not experience these moments separately when the same teammate keeps gaining. China becomes part of Japan. Japan becomes part of Miami. Miami becomes part of Canada. The frustration starts to connect itself. Russell later said that, looking at the safety car timing in Japan, it felt like the gods did not want him in the fight. That sentence mattered because it showed how the season was beginning to feel to him. Not like one defeat. Not like one unlucky race. Like a pattern. And once a driver feels trapped inside a pattern, everything becomes heavier. Every strategy call. Every mechanical issue. Every teammate victory. Every question from the media. Every lap where the car does not feel exactly right. Meanwhile, Antonelli kept gaining strength. Every win made the rookie label weaker. Every result made the championship table louder. Every weekend made it harder for Mercedes to treat him like the junior driver. And then Miami made the problem deeper. Because Miami did not just make Russell look unlucky. It made him look uncomfortable. Antonelli won again. Russell finished fourth. And the internal analysis pointed toward a driving style difference that could shape the rest of the season. Antonelli seemed able to manage the rear tires more gently during demanding laps. He generated less temperature, kept the tires in a better window, and made the W17 work naturally for him. That sounds technical, but the idea is simple. Think of the tires like running shoes on hot pavement. If you push too hard, too early, they start to slide. You lose grip. You lose confidence. You cannot move the way you want. If your touch is smoother, those shoes keep working longer. Antonelli seemed to have that smoother touch with the W17. Russell was fighting the balance. And when a Formula One driver fights the balance, he is not only losing lap time. He is losing trust. If the rear does not feel stable, he hesitates. If the front does not respond, he cannot attack. If the tires fall away too quickly, every corner becomes a negotiation. Russell said the car was not giving him what he needed, and when there is no confidence, a driver cannot attack. That was a warning. Because once a driver believes the car is naturally rewarding the other side of the garage, every technical decision starts to feel personal. A setup choice becomes political. A tire decision becomes suspicious. A development direction becomes a question. Who does this help? Who is the car becoming built around? Who is Mercedes really listening to? That is how internal tension grows. Not always with shouting. Sometimes with a driver feeling, lap by lap, that the machine is slowly choosing the other side. By the time Mercedes reached Canada, the pressure was already loaded. The clash had not happened yet, but the conditions for it were already there. Russell admitted before the weekend that he had expected to be the main protagonist of the season, and that had not happened. That was not a normal comment. It was a confession. He was admitting the role he believed belonged to him had been taken away in real time. Antonelli answered from the strongest possible position. He said he was the championship leader, and that said everything about the current situation. No shouting. No insult. Just the points. And sometimes the points table is the coldest weapon in Formula One. Russell had explanations. Antonelli had results. That is why the sprint clash felt bigger than one corner. When Russell defended hard and Antonelli felt forced out, the incident carried the weight of every race before it. Antonelli exploded over the radio. He said Russell had closed him off. He said he had been pushed wide. He demanded a penalty. He said it could not be tolerated. But the line that mattered most was not about punishment. It was about the relationship. He said Russell was his teammate. That word changed everything. Because a teammate is not supposed to be just another car. A teammate knows the invisible rules. You can fight. You can defend. You can be hard. But you do not risk both cars if the team is fighting for a championship. You do not turn a winning machine into a personal battlefield. Antonelli's anger suggested he believed Russell had crossed that line. Russell did not agree. His defense was that the move had not been investigated by the stewards, and that spoke for itself. From a rule-book perspective, he had a point. No investigation. No penalty. No official wrongdoing. But that is why this situation is so dangerous. A move can be legal and still damage trust. A driver can stay inside the rules and still make his teammate believe the internal agreement has been broken. And then Antonelli exposed the deeper issue. He referred to the meeting. That meant Mercedes had already spoken privately about how the two drivers should race each other. The team had already seen the tension rising. The team had already tried to set a boundary. And then, in the first major pressure moment, that boundary was tested immediately. That is the massive blow before Monaco. Mercedes had already tried to control the problem. And the problem still escaped. Toto Wolff understood how serious it was. He told Antonelli to focus on driving, not complaining over the radio. That was the public control voice. But Mercedes also warned both drivers that they needed to compete without taking more risk. That was the private fear becoming audible. Because when a team is only managing racing, it talks about tires, gaps, lap times, and strategy. When a team starts managing behavior, the situation has changed. Mercedes was no longer just managing two fast cars. It was managing two emotional positions. Russell, wounded and frustrated. Antonelli, leading and increasingly powerful. The Sunday race made it worse. Russell and Antonelli exchanged the lead 4 times. For fans, that is exciting. For Mercedes, it is terrifying. Because when teammates fight at the front, there is no outside enemy to blame if it goes wrong. There is only the team's decision to let it happen. At one moment, Antonelli cut the chicane to stay ahead, and Mercedes told him to return the position. On the surface, that showed fairness. But underneath, it made everything more sensitive. Every instruction now carried meaning. If Mercedes helped Antonelli, Russell could see favoritism. If Mercedes helped Russell, Antonelli could feel exposed. If Mercedes waited too long, both sides could lose trust. That is the trap of an internal title fight. Nothing is neutral. Every radio message becomes evidence. Every strategy call becomes political. Every team warning is heard through suspicion. Then Russell's car died. He was leading when the W17 lost electronics and power. No rescue. No control. No chance to save the race. Russell asked what had happened. He said he had nothing. Then he asked why. That one word carried the whole season. Why China? Why Japan? Why Miami? Why Canada, when he was finally leading? The team told him it was an inverter problem and that he had to park the car. Technically, that was the answer. Emotionally, it was not enough. Because a driver does not climb out of a broken car thinking like an engineer. He climbs out thinking about what vanished. A win. Momentum. Authority. Proof that the season had not fully become his teammates. And Russell's reaction was almost more alarming because he did not explode. He was quiet. Still. Drained. Sometimes shouting releases pressure. Stillness stores it. After the race, Russell said the championship was Antonelli's now, unless Antonelli lost it. That line changed the psychological state of the team. Because Russell was no longer speaking like a driver protecting his own title campaign. He was speaking like a driver stepping away from the pressure. Then he said the pressure had disappeared. He would enjoy every race, try to win each one, and he had nothing to lose. That sentence is the danger. A driver with nothing to lose can become the most unpredictable person on the grid. He may break later. He may defend harder. He may stop calculating risk the way a championship leader calculates it. And Monaco is the worst place in the world for that mindset. Because Monaco does not give pride a second chance. A small touch can end both cars. A late squeeze can block the circuit. A defensive move that survives in Canada can become disaster between the walls of Monte Carlo. Antonelli, on the other side, has the opposite pressure. He has everything to protect. He has the championship lead. He has the wins. He has a 43-point gap over Russell. And he has become the driver Mercedes may now have to protect, whether the team wants to admit it or not. That is where Toto Wolff faces the decision he has been trying to delay. He cannot openly reduce Russell to a supporting role too early. Russell is too fast, too experienced, and too important to the team. But Wolff cannot ignore Antonelli's position either. A 43-point lead changes the logic. At some point, a team does not protect feelings. It protects the championship. Wolff tried to balance it carefully. He defended hard racing by asking whether a driver like Max Verstappen would have left space in that kind of battle. But then he said the sentence that matters most. There will not always be total freedom to fight between teammates. That is the line that points directly to Monaco.